welcome to the Snap UK podcast week 4 edition. The first thing to note for this week is this Titans-Steelers game was postponed at the last minute after all the Titans went down with COVID. But I believe they are now returning negative tests. So, they can be back on the schedule next week. There'll be more about COVID later in the show, but that is the game that's missing from your week 4 lineup. So, hello everybody. John, Jim and Gary are with me. No 4th and inches I see this week. He couldn't be bothered once again, or he's working. One of the two. John joins us all the way from sunny Scotland. Say hello, John.
Hello, John.
Jim joining us all the way from not far down the road from me in the rain. And Gary is actually back in the doghouse for the first time in months. One day his wife's going to let the rest of us go around there again as well.
Oh, you could have come round. I invited you. It's just obviously John.
I will turn up when we're all able. When we're all able, that'd be nice. Right, guys, we've got quite a lot to get through. There's still 15 games to attend to, and the first of our 4 weekly power rankings. So we're going to dive straight in with the big news coming out of the weekend, which is after much speculation, the Houston Texans have fired Bill O'Brien as both GM and head coach following a 31-23 defeat to the equally useless Vikings, who were notching up their first win of the season. Guys, let's get the game out of the way quickly here.
God, do we have to?
Yeah, we have to. Did anybody see anything from this game that you would consider to be a Bill O'Brien redeeming feature before we get into him?
Oh, God, no.
That was short. I mean, there's a couple of points here. Once again, the Texans were trailing at halftime, and that's 4-21 over the last 4 seasons when trailing at halftime. So there is never a second half plan. Dalvin, only the second time in his career he'd managed 100 plus yards rushing in consecutive games. You wouldn't have thought that from a guy who's played that well. And I actually thought the Vikings showed some actual guts for a change. I thought they'd been gutless over the first few weeks of the season. But 260 yards and a touchdown and nothing wrong out of Kirk Cousins. That's all he has to do. And 130 yards rushing from Cook with 2 touchdowns. That is how this team should be playing. Losing Diggs, I think, has been a bigger blow than they wanted. But Thielen and Jefferson both crossing the 100 yards receiving. This is the ideal game. You let Cousins manage and don't ask him to do too much. And you just push from there with the run game. That's all you have to do. And coming up against the Texans team with no ideas, this is exactly the get-right game the Vikings needed. And probably takes a bit of heat off of Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at, we'll come on to it later, but you look at the Cleveland-Dallas game as well. And obviously, Cleveland coach Kevin Stefanski came from this Vikings offense. And the two teams are really similar. Have a good running game and don't ask your quarterback to do too much. And yeah, both teams have got great receivers. I think Justin Jefferson looks like the real deal rookie wide receiver. He's looking really good. And don't ask your quarterback to do too much. And both Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins are that type of quarterback. The other similarity is the run defense on the other side of the ball. The Texans are currently giving up 181 yards per game against rushing attacks.
That is insane.
181 yards, and they're not that much better on the passing. And they're giving up 31 points a game. We said it last week. This defense is terrible. The offense is okay, but they're never going to perform that well if the defense isn't up to it, up to kind of scratch. Deshaun Watson is a great player. Larry Tunsil is a good left tackle. Outside of that, and JJ Watt, there really is nothing on this team. And the sad thing is that there's no draft capital to rebuild this team either. So whoever comes in as GM has got a really tough job.
Yeah, I think that's all fair points. Anyone want to have a guess the last time a team allowed 4 games to start the season, losing 160 or more rushing yards in each game?
Maybe 3 years ago, Hugh Jackson was at the Browns.
Yeah.
It was 25 years ago. The Arizona Cardinals of 1995 were the last team this poor against the run to start the season. That's bad. That's like
really
historic level bad for a team that have prided themselves on the defence in the past.
But I think we still got to keep going back to the fact if you look at the amount of there was only 2 games where both teams didn't score 20 points.
Yeah, there's been an insane amount of points scored in the start of the season.
It is just crazy, and you wonder how much time they are getting to coach, as well as they normally do.
Yeah,
and defense is hugely about coaching, isn't it?
Yes,
absolutely. That is a really good point. You're absolutely right. But every team has got the same problems, and not every team is giving up nearly 200 yards on the ground each game.
No, the Texans have given up 100-yard rushes in 3 of the first 4 games. They only gave up 4.
But I'm sure you're going to tell me a load of stats that a load of other teams have got.
But what I'm getting at is
first worst pass defense. They're all giving up.
This same defense last year, with more or less the same pieces on it, was very, very good against the run. So it's not all about the players and the coaching, because that hasn't all changed. The coach up until yesterday was the same coach, and the players are more or less the same players. There was nothing being gotten out of them at all. They looked defeated coming on the pitch.
Yeah. I think, defense as well. You've got a few bigger guys as well, haven't you, on the defense? How is conditioning at the moment? There's all sorts of things that come into play, and each team's got to deal with it differently. I think, in essence, that Texans team, you've just got a franchise quarterback with nobody around him. You can talk about all the other issues and all that kind of stuff, but that is the issue. You've taken away any weapons. Will Fuller will score you some touchdowns, but generally, he's not going to win games for you.
No.
And now they've got very little else. He's just going to be double coverage most of the time. There's major issues. They've made some ridiculous decisions.
Yeah. And you can look at other teams who have been, traditionally kind of really poor. And the one that springs to mind over the last 10 years is the Browns. They've gone from coach to coach, to GM to GM. They've had seasons where they've lost every single game and seasons where they've won one game. But in all that time, they've had draft picks with which to kind of rebuild again. So, yes, they lost good players. They drafted bad players. They signed other players on free agency, and they've never really cracked it up until maybe now. But they've always had draft capital to build in. The same with the Dolphins. The Dolphins were poor last year. This year they had 2 first-round picks. Next year they got 2 first-round picks. The Raiders traded away Khalil Mack and got a ton of picks for him to help them rebuild. There is nothing in Houston. They've got Deshaun Watson, they've got Laramie Tunsil, they've got JJ Watt. And then they've got a whole cast of B team at best players like David Johnson. He's not DeAndre Hopkins. David Johnson hasn't been the top running back in the league for 4 or 5 years now.
He's not David Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Gary's right. All their receivers are 2 and 3 level receivers at best. The whole defense is terrible, and they've got this is the craziest thing. They've got the highest wage bill in the league.
What?
Yeah.
They've just paid Deshaun Watson, haven't they?
Yeah.
So they paid him
Mahomes
$40 million a year, didn't they?
Yeah.
But they paid him a lot.
Yeah, but the Chiefs have also paid Mahomes and Frank Clark and Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
It's
JJ Watt's been paid as well, hasn't he? So they've given out some massive contracts. I think the problem is, if you're Watson, you're now going, I want to be up there in the discussion with Lamar, Mahomes, Russell Wilson. I should be up there, MVP, potential Super Bowl wins. But, we've seen this to lots of great quarterbacks over the year. And this is why lots of quarterbacks only win, great quarterbacks sometimes don't win a Super Bowl, or they win one. Breeze has won one. Rodgers has won one.
Dan Marino never won it.
But it's not that easy, is it, to get the whole thing right?
No.
And that's the problem, isn't it? But if you're Deshaun Watson, you've just signed up to 5 years of this. You're a bit concerned.
So here's the thing then. Is there a case for defending Bill O'Brien? Don't jump down my throat. Just listen and then tell me whether it's defensible. Bill O'Brien, very conveniently, in 7 years, has had exactly 100 regular season games as the head coach of the Texans. and his record is 52-48 regular season, so just over 500.
Yeah.
But don't forget some of the players he had on a team he inherited that had never had a winning season.
Yeah.
So, but the Jags are in that division as well, aren't
they? Well, so I'm coming to this. So let me finish my point. He got them to the playoff 4 times in 7 seasons. They only won 2 out of the 6 games, I believe. But okay, they've been there. Think about the fact that they had Brock at one point playing for them. They had Fitzmagic, Brian Hoyer was a starter, Ryan Mallett. Like, they've had some terrible quarterbacks. They finally got their franchise quarterback. What about Bill O'Brien's record makes you think that this is the right decision? All right, it's a poor start, but only once has he failed to win 9 games minimum.
So yeah, I mean, I think you're onto a good point there. I think Bill O'Brien is a good head coach. He's a good coach. I won't take that away from him. You're right. He's got them into playoffs with a relatively average team, but he got power hungry. When Bob McNair died and Cal McNair took over, Bill O'Brien saw an opportunity to have a Bill Belichick type role. He got rid of Rick Smith. He got rid of another GM who I can't even remember, and he conveniently took over that GM role to be kind of all things god of football in Houston. He's a good head coach. He's not a good general manager. You look at the 2 trades that stand out, the one for Larry Tunsil and the one to send DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona. I don't think any other GM would have made those trades. I think the other team won both those trades. And that's unfortunately kind of where he comes down, because he's now saddled himself with a terrible team. And no matter how good a coach you are, I don't think there's enough quality on this team to kind of win 50% of your games, which you need to get into the playoffs again.
The only thing I would say is if you're going to allow this guy to go ahead and make all these major footballing decisions, such as getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins, as if he was a shit on your shoe, if you're going to allow him to do that, then surely you need to allow him some time to show why you've done that.
That's where I was going with that. You've let him wreck the franchise's best chance of moving forward. No, you've got no draft capital and you've lost your best player. Who's going to have this? Romeo Crennel's been given the job temporarily, right?
Yeah, and he's not exactly got a massive pedigree as head coach. And you're right, the only place the buck can stop now is with the owner of the team, and he's not going to sack himself, is he? Yeah, he's made, like Cal McNair's made some bloody stupid decisions, which are easy to see in hindsight. But when Bill O'Brien did take over as GM, he had a good record as a head coach. We can't deny that, and he still did. But it's been an ultimate failure. Is he can't be a GM.
I did like the fact that they were very specific when they reported the firing, to the fact that he'd been fired from both roles.
Both roles, yeah.
We're going to fire you, and then we're going to fire you again.
Effectively firing you twice.
Yeah.
I mean, two severance packages, though.
Did he have to fire himself as head coach, though?
Yeah. Quickly to the Vikings. Obviously, they're lagging some way behind the Bears and the Packers, but they do have enough talent in the team to still be a playoff contender, right? At 1 and 3.
I'd still take this team over the Bears.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The Bears are in a totally false position.
Yeah.
And what do we think about Mike Zimmer and his position? Is the season safe regardless, or?
Yeah, he's safe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Definitely
I figured the same. I just thought I'd ask. Did any of us have Bill O'Brien as the first coach to be fired, by the way?
Nah, not with Gase and Dan Quinn doing what they're doing. I think we'd all probably agree that a bad season would mean he'd get fired at the end of the year. But I don't think we ever really mentioned him as someone being on the hot seat, just because of his position of power in that organisation.
I put the question round before the season, and the only answers we got were Matt Patricia and Adam Gase.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Does anyone know the other 5 coaches that have been fired after week 4? There's only 5 that have ever been fired this early.
No.
Hey, well, Joe Philbin at the Dolphins a few years ago.
Oh yeah, he was terrible.
A Niners coach would have gone.
Dennis Allen and Lane Kiffin were both fired by the Raiders after week 4, and there were 2 others whose names now completely escape me. But I thought it was funny that the Raiders had 2 of them. That's pretty typical. You know, it's not a common occurrence. You think a quarter of the way through the season would be enough, but it's not actually a common occurrence at all. There's only 5. So anyway, we shall leave that catastrophe there. I think you'll see some turnaround from the Texans, but it won't be a winning franchise this season.
They've had a ridiculous schedule as well.
Yeah, they have had a tough schedule. That's true.
They have. But
that's a completely poisoned chalice. I would not. You've got no draft capital and you've got a crap team. Who is going to want that job other than a 73-year-old man?
If you're going there, you've got to be demanding another one of these 6-year contracts because you can't.
Yeah.
You've got, as in an interview, you've got to be very open and honest and say, look, this isn't going to happen in year 1. It's probably not going to happen in year 2. Year 3 might be okay, but at the moment we're screwed. Because
I mean, you look at the other guys we mentioned. You look at Gase. You look at Patricia and Quinn, who were also on the hot seat. They've got average teams, but they've also got draft capital. I mean, what can you do with the Texans other than, hope you can? I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know what you can do because there's no one who, apart from Watson, who's got any draft capital. So what's the point? You're just going to have to be like, okay, well, wait, I have a 4-year plan to get back to sucking.
Scott Linehan was the other one, by the way, St. Louis Rams. And I think one of them was Mike Shannon, who was fired really early one season. Anyway, so we're going to move on from that. I do think the Texans will be okay, but next year, like you say, still too soon with no capital. Another coach who should be fired, though, after the Falcons lost 16-30 at the Packers, Dan Quinn at the Falcons, got to be clinging on to the hottest of hot seats now. I was expecting the announcement before we came on here this evening. Surely it's over.
Yeah, I think we've been saying that for the last few weeks, though, haven't we? Like,
why would you not now do that?
Do they go into a bye next week?
It's the Lions. I don't know if it's the Falcons as well.
I mean, that's the only
Packers and Lions.
Yeah, that's the only reason I can think for getting rid of him now.
Oh, who's got a lawnmower going? It's the Packers and Lions, like you say. So I don't know. I can't give you any reason why Dan Quinn hasn't lost his job today.
Well, sorry, that was my coffee machine cleaning itself. The only reason I can think of is that they're going to wait until the bye because they've probably got a tough run coming up. It's not the NFC South is not an easy division. Wait until the bye, bring in a new or even reserve head coach, temporary head coach, and see what you can get out of this team. Because I think he's another one, along with Patricia and Gase, who probably have to go at some point this season. If he makes it to the end of the year, then
I think
bye week for them is week 10.
Yeah,
I think COVID is probably going to be having an effect because it's just not as easy, is it, to just rip everything up and start again? I honestly don't think that there will be as many coach firings as most seasons. And like I keep saying every time, I don't know who you're going to go and get.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It depends on what your plan is. If you've got...
Are you going to try and get Josh McDaniels again?
No, that's not going to happen.
Waiting for Bill to take an overdose or like whatever he's doing in his little hobo shirt,
If you've got someone on the staff already who can step up, like the Jets have got Greg Williams who could step up and be a head coach again. If the Falcons have got someone of that ilk, and I'm not sure they have, then it's worth doing. But you're right. If you're firing your head coach at this point of the season, or at any point during the season, realistically, you're writing off this season. You're accepting.
In the last 3 years, how many coordinators have been promoted and college coaches have been headhunted? There must be at least 4 college coaches that have come into the league, and at least 4 or 5 young, new thinking coordinators that have been promoted. That's a third of the league.
Yeah. But
there isn't that much more talent to go and steal, is there?
Well, there is.
What are you sacking coaches to go and get more of the same?
there's always new talent coming into the league as well. You look at the last couple of years back, where Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan got their first head coaching gig. You even look at this year, where Matt Rule at Carolina is doing some really impressive things with Carolina, considering the roster they've got. So there's always an up and coming young head coach or offensive or defensive coordinator out there who can change the franchise. The other hand is do you go for an old experienced head coach? I think the experience at Dallas with Mike McCarthy will probably put people off at the moment for that.
And you look at if they fire Dan Quinn and just hire from the coaching staff.
You go get Garrett.
Dirk Cotter. You don't want Dirk Cotter. So yeah,
at least
he's Garrett, aren't they? That's what you're saying.
Really?
No, because he's got a contract with the Giants. But at least with Dirk Cotter, you've got someone who has got head coach experience. Like I said, whatever you do, whether you fire the coach at the end of week 4 or the beginning of week 16, you've accepted that this season's a write-off. You're not firing a coach if you're having a good season, are you? You've accepted you're probably not going to get in the playoffs this season. But not, attempt to lose every game because these guys are professional. But you're accepting you've probably got a high draft pick. You've probably got a good case to going into the college ranks or into the coordinator ranks and picking up someone new and rebuilding a franchise. Like Matt Ryan's still young enough where you can build around that quarterback. He's still got enough quality. And
I heard a rumour today that, is it time to shop Matt Ryan and start the rebuild?
Why not?
Paid a lot of money, isn't he?
Well, yeah, but imagine Matt Ryan would get snapped up by someone because he's a quality quarterback. Imagine him going to the 49ers and teaming up with Kyle Shanahan again.
Broncos.
Taking at the Patriots when Cam leaves. Look, the Falcons have got not the hardest schedule. They've got the Panthers next, then at Vikings, home against the Lions, at Panthers, Broncos. The next toughest game is the Saints, which is why they've got a realistic chance of being even by the time
the Panthers are coming off a 2-game winning streak.
But what I'm saying is there's not a huge difference in talent between the two teams. If anything, the Falcons are the better team. The problem seems to be the coaching. Ever since they lost the Super Bowl, Dan Quinn doesn't look like he knows how to win a game. They have been ahead or right up with the score so many times across the last 3 years. And they just throw it away. I understand this theory that Gary comes back to every week. Who are you replacing him with? I don't think right now it matters. I think John could turn up there and do just as good a job, which means someone with an ounce of talent, anyone on another coaching staff, is probably going to be better than Dan Quinn. I'm not. I'm not picking. Johns was the first picture I saw on the screen. I'm just saying, Dan Quinn is the problem with the Falcons. The team.
Yeah.
I think their cornerbacks might be the problem, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But
all right. The defense
you can claim Dan Quinn if you like, but the cornerbacks are useless.
That's true, but the offense should be winning half of its games on its own. It's amazing.
You look at that defense. There's a lot more quality on in terms of kind of named players on that defense than there is on the Texans.
Yeah, and they're just not producing. I think they've lost all confidence in the coaching, is what I believe. We should give some props to the Packers though. Most points ever through 4 games. Do you remember that 2014 Broncos team when Peyton Manning was just hurling touchdowns and touchdowns and touchdowns? Well, the Packers have just scored more points. They are seriously putting up big numbers. It's very, very impressive to score them 150 points through the first 4 games. That's insane. I don't see how you stop this team at the moment. If you put them and the Chiefs head to head, I don't think you can tell me the Chiefs are definitely winning that game.
Well, it reminds me of the Packers team, with Eddie Lacy, but Eddie Lacy being better. He's the same size as Eddie Lacy, isn't he, Jones?
Is this you trying to give some credit to Aaron Jones?
I'm going to give some credit to Aaron Jones. I've admitted I was
so
wrong already,
18 months too late.
It's fine. It's fine. But, I saw this clip of him, just bouncing off a defender. He went about 3 meters. He's just ridiculous. But, that's what Rodgers needs, I think, around him to play great football, is he needs a great running back. a lot of quarterbacks do, because it just gives you more time, doesn't it? And if you give Rodgers any more time because you're worried about the run, that's it. It's game over. You give Rodgers time, you got no chance.
Did you see what his completion percentage was on last night? 81.8%. Quarterback rating 147.5. Him and Russell Wilson are proving that it's not just Mahomes and Jackson that are in the MVP race. The two of them are absolutely flying at the moment. And Griff, you're absolutely right. And Gary, you're right. It makes it easier with a good running back, and they've got that again. And they've got a decent running team. They haven't got quality at wide receiver, but when you've got a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, you don't need quality at wide receiver. The Patriots did it for years with Tom Brady.
Who was the guy last night that caught the 3 touchdowns? First ever undrafted Packers receiver to catch 3 touchdowns in a game. Toynan?
Rob Tonyan.
Yeah. I mean, they've had him, Valdez-Scantling, the other
Lazard.
Lazard.
Even
the last 6 games they've played without Devontae Adams, they've won them all.
Yeah.
They don't need the quality names, but the running back really does help. I absolutely believe that helps. And the fuel of insult to Aaron Rodgers. Elsewhere in the NFC South then, so the Saints beat the Lions 35-29. Panthers defeated the Cardinals 31-21. And the Buccaneers continue to improve 31-38 over the Chargers. So let's talk about the Saints-Lions game. 35-29 to the Saints. Drew Brees looking every bit as good as Drew Brees needed to look. No problem. But Alvin Kamara is the motor of this team.
Yeah, this team goes for Alvin Kamara. It's not a Drew Brees led team. This is about get the ball to Alvin Kamara and hope that he does something. The guy is playing out of his skin at the moment.
How many touchdowns did he get last year, Jim?
2 last year.
It was 6. 6 touchdowns in total in 2019. He's got 7 already this year. So just saying, but it's not.
I'm not sure the Saints are quite as good as they were the last couple of years. I don't feel anywhere near as confident about them making a deep playoff run this year.
No, not at all.
The thing about Breeze that just doesn't convince me that he's going to last the season. I don't know.
Does it matter? If you put Jameis Winston into this lineup and bring Michael Thomas back, they're still going to rack up points. It'll look the same as last year's Bucks that was absolutely firing points up all over the shop.
Yeah, I don't know. The Saint nagging in the back of my mind that this Saints team is, it might make it to the playoffs, but I'm not sure it's any better. It's good enough or better enough than last year to go.
The defense this year isn't as good as what it was last year. We've not seen the best out of Cam Jordan yet. I don't think Marcus Lattimore, the cornerback, is playing at the same level that he was in his rookie season or last year. So they are giving up points on defense. I think the offense is fine. I think you're absolutely right, Griff. I think you put any quarterback in there with Kamara and Michael Thomas and then a few others scattered around. I think you'll be doing fine. But the defense is, unless it improves, they're going to come unstuck against better teams like they did. Well, they won in week 1 against the Bucks, didn't they? But I think if they play the Bucks again soon, I would be putting money on Tom Brady.
Has anyone noticed the complete lack of anything important out of Taysom Hill? He's a non-factor. The last 2 seasons, he's averaged 5.8 and 5.3 yards a rush. This season, he's averaging about 3 because people know when he's on the field, you've got to put the man in the box. And his receiving yards are down massively as well. Last 2 seasons, 12.3 and 7.7 receiving yards. He's done nothing this season because teams are understanding when he comes on the field, he's not there as a distraction. He's there because he's going to get the ball.
Yeah.
So,
the gadget is quite niche. Quite niche, this comment, but Sheffield United last year, everyone was a bit surprised by them, and this year they've got no points in the Premiership because they're terrible. And they play Championship football, so they've been found out.
No. The thing is,
you can't just keep doing
Sheffield
the same
United,
thing, can you?
Sheffield United have a very distinct way of playing, which is no one in Europe, and the same with Taysom Hill. As soon as you've got tape on it, you know it. And Gary says, I think Sheffield United is a great comparison. What it is,
very
something
niche.
really, it looks great when it happens. The second time you play it, you're like, well, I know what's going to happen now. So it's he's a non-factor because, quite frankly, on that team, he's a non-factor. He's not the second quarterback. He's just a gadget that only going to affect poor coaches.
Is he a gimmick that's been overused?
They put the tender on him to dangle him out. I don't think they're that convinced by him. I know Peyton came out and said he's going to win us the Super Bowl or some crap, didn't he? But in essence, I think they put the tender on, saying if anyone wants to come and have a nibble, this is what's going to cost you. But I don't think they're that bothered if he went or not.
No, I think you're probably right. I think he's a gadget that's been overused.
But they need to change.
Gimmick is the right term.
Yeah, they need to change how they're using him because you're right. They've got tape on him. If he's on the field, he's probably going to get the ball at some point. So you can kind of scheme around that. If they actually started using him as a second quarterback on the field and did something different, because whenever he was on the field, he very rarely threw the ball, didn't he? If they actually gave him that option, that would probably loosen up a few defensive minds as well. So not that people just aren't used to it. Gary's right. It's like people get enough tape on you get used to it. It's why rookie quarterbacks come into the league and often have a good first season and then have a massive slump in the second season. They just need to change how they're using him. And if he is as good a thrower as Peyton's made out, then give him the opportunity to throw the ball a little bit.
Anybody want to have a guess? The last 10 games that the Lions have led by double digits, what is their record?
2-8.
Good work, Gary. It's actually 1-8-1, I believe. They've lost their last 6 games where they've led by double digits at half time as well. It's like they've got nothing. They cannot hold a second half lead. They just cannot do it. And I don't understand why Patricia is unable to coach this defense because the pieces are there.
Don't Stafford and Breeze have the most comeback victories since Stafford's been in the league? Isn't that right?
I believe that's correct. Yeah. Because they played.
He's fine coming from behind Stafford, but he's definitely not a front runner.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I think he's playing well, but the interception he threw at the weekend was dreadful. I don't know whether he misread it or just didn't think what he was doing. It was poor. But generally speaking, he's playing at a high level, and they're sort of wasting the last couple of years of the decent end of his career. He's had no chance with the Lions, really, has he, ever?
No, Peterson looks good, though, I think.
Yeah.
He does. I mean, the rushing stats aren't great, but the O-line is nothing to write home about. But somehow he is leading the team, and that's all you can ask him to do, really. He's not letting anybody down, is he? That's the thing. But
I'm amazed. I thought he was
11 carries, 36 yards, so 3.3 yards a rush. For an old man, that's all right, but you wouldn't want that as your lead back. DeAndre Swift actually had 5.5 yards a carry.
He hardly carried it, though. He got most of his points
4
from catching,
carries,
didn't he?
It seems strange. And Kerryon Johnson's just a non-factor now. He's barely playing. 3 carries he had. It's not right. But you'd hope during the bye week they could coach up the defence somehow to hold on to these leads, because I think they'll still get the leads. The team is good enough. Kenny Golladay makes this team so much better. It's like having Calvin Johnson still.
And Hawkinson's starting to play well at tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 2 receptions, had a touchdown in there, had a really big catch in there as well. It's good, but you just feel, again, like some of the other coaches we've talked about, it's the coaching that's letting the team down, not the players. The talent is there. I find that a worry. I'm glad I'm not a Lions fan. So Panthers beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals got off to a hot start this season, but lost 31-21 to the Panthers. Sorry. Matt Rule is doing more with less than just about anyone else, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been brilliant. I think, especially when you consider that they've lost their best player in Christian McCaffrey, he's getting massive yardage out of Mike Davis and Reggie Bonathan,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Robbie Anderson looks like a genuine number one receiver. We took the piss out of him when he was at the line.
He's catching the ball, isn't he?
He's catching it. It's worrying.
He's catching the ball. 8 receptions for 99 yards. It's been a couple of few games in a row.
Watching it on Sunday, and I was like, we're going to have to talk about him, aren't we? We're going to have to talk about Robbie Anderson. I just kept seeing clips of him catching the ball. I was just shaking my head.
Yeah,
he does this every so often, though.
No, to this extent, John. He has one game and then we don't see him enough. He's now had 4 games where he's looked really good.
He's one of the league leaders, isn't he, so far this season for yards?
Yeah.
Top
so
5,
far, yeah. Well, hang on. 2020 receiving stats. He has 377 yards, 34 targets, and 28 receptions and a touchdown.
Wow.
I remember him in the Jets going 5 games without a drop, and we were going, "Oh, is this a new Robbie Anderson?" And no, it just happened that the old Robbie Anderson came out. So it's week 4 of a strange season.
Well, the season works for him.
It's very true. What do we think? Is there a problem at the Cardinals, or have they just reached their sort of point at the season where they still haven't built enough after a really down year? They're still rebuilding. The talent isn't quite there. Was the fast start just, they had been better coached through COVID than their opponents, and so they showed them up early on? What do we think the line is here? Because I still think they look like an 8-win potential team. But is that going to be pushing it? Is that expecting too much, really?
Outside of Kyler Murray, they haven't got a rushing game. Kenyon Drake isn't doing enough, and I think some of that. I think it's unfair to pin that all on Kenyon Drake because I don't think it's just him. I think the O-line needs improving. I think that's where they need to focus their attention on the upcoming draft or free agency in the next year. This is still a developing team. Kyler Murray this is his 2nd season now, so he's still got a couple of seasons where he's going to be cheap. You've got DeAndre Hopkins for a few seasons now. They need to improve the defense. They're still in a rebuild mode, and it's they're still 2-2, so they're doing all right.
I'm not taking anything from this game really for the Cardinals. They are doing all right. Just it wasn't a good performance, but they aren't a great team yet. But they will get better. I think we should be judging the Cardinals on this. Let's see where they are in week 12. Going forward, I think they will be disappointed because beating the 49ers in week 1 was when the 49ers were at full strength was a good result. I think losing to the Lions and now the Panthers, I think beforehand they would have looked at those 2 games and probably pick them off as pretty much surefire wins given where those franchises are. So I think they'll be disappointed to lose, but I don't think they'll be. To John's point, I think they'll be completely gutted.
No, I think that's fair. Kyler Murray certainly is the real deal. DeAndre Hopkins is. I do think getting the running game going is crucial. When Drake landed there last year, it was a spark, and they looked a little bit lost without him because you've just got to contain Murray, and that sort of limits what the team can do. It's a little bit one-dimensional unless Kenyon Drake or someone else in the team turns up.
Yeah. And you look at the Ravens and similar styles of play from the quarterback in terms of they're both able to scramble it. But the difference of the Ravens is they've got a running game around Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
they need to get more out of Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. And like I said, I don't think it's on them. I think it's on the offensive line isn't as good as what it is in Baltimore.
Also, the Cardinals' defense is historically bad as well.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
They have been dreadful. So
DeAndre Hopkins was injured though as well, wasn't he? He wasn't totally fit, Hopkins.
No, so I gather, and obviously without him they lose a lot. Larry Fitzgerald hasn't really been a feature this season. You'd hope that losing Hopkins would open up more targets for Fitzgerald, but that is seriously why
it opened up for more for Kirk.
Kirk was in the game, but he did play. He just wasn't, like. The first 3 weeks, he was just crazy. He was getting kind of, probably 12 to 15 targets a game. And then this week, he was definitely quieter.
I think that's fair. I think he's got the 2nd most receptions for Cardinals through their first 4 games, though. What do we think about Tom Brady's improving relationship with Mike Evans, etc., at the Bucs as they beat the Chargers 31-38 in what was a great game for Justin Herbert, by the way, even in defeat? But the Brady-Evans connection seems to be coming on strong now, right?
It disgusts me.
Yeah.
And
I said to
really,
John,
he had nobody else to throw the ball to because Gronk got about 25 yards again. So, I don't feel like, and Mike Evans got a bit angry because he nearly got into a fight, didn't he? So, but he did nearly get injured, didn't he, Evans? He was out of the game for a little while.
He did go out for a little while, yeah. Yeah, he did.
But if you've only got to look for the guy that's 6'7" every time, to try and throw to, it's not that hard to build a relationship, is it? Like, I don't.
And Chris Godwin's not there.
I hope they don't win the Super Bowl. That's as much as I want to say.
Fair enough.
I sat here with John and I said, for the first time now, I can understand why people hate Tom Brady because it just doesn't seem to matter what the other team do and how much you root for the other team. He seems to be able to find a way back.
Oh, I thought you meant he just opened his mouth and started his whiny voice going again.
He mentioned it after Ronald Jones dropped a quite easy pass.
Yeah.
And you could just see the disdain in his face.
It was an underthrown pass by Tom Brady. They said was in the breadbasket. It was clearly going low.
You can't talk bad about Brady on TV, mate.
I mean,
I think what's most impressive about this game is actually the Buccaneers' offensive line. Given the defense on the Chargers of Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, they didn't give up a single sack. They only got 5 QB hits in total, which is low. So that's part of that is obviously Brady's nuance at the position, and part of it is that offensive line is with Tristan Wirfs, the rookie tackle, doing really well. But can we talk about the other rookie in the game? Because I thought it was excellent.
Yeah,
Justin Herbert is just, I feel for Tyrod Taylor in that he had the starting gig and
coming back.
He got stabbed by the doctor, but you can't take Justin Herbert out of this team now. He's too good.
I agree. He looked amazing. What an arm!
Only 2 quarterbacks, have had 900 passing yards over their first 3 games since 1970. Justin Herbert and one other.
Manning?
No.
Roethlisberger?
No. I think we could be here a while.
Dan Marino?
Dilfer?
Gary?
Steve Young.
No, it was Cam Newton.
Oh, right.
No one would.
Yeah. He did explode onto the.
He looks brilliant. He really does look brilliant. But the game changed on a missed kick. We sat here watching it, John. They missed an opportunity to go for it. Either he got sacked and taken out of field goal range, or they missed a kick. And then I said to John, that was it. They had to score there into the lead, and now Brady's going down the other end and wrapping this game up. And this is exactly what happened. I'm fairly sure they missed a field goal. And I just said right then, you cannot make a mistake against this Bucs team now because the defense is brilliant. The O-line is stopping Brady from getting hit, and he's finally getting on the same hymn sheet with the receivers. This is a dangerous team. This may well be the best team in the NFC South.
Mm-hmm. I think it could well be. I think the game really changed though when Austin Eckler went out injured. He's going to be out for I think 5 to 6 weeks now, which is a massive loss for the Chargers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Joshua Kelly, though, looks capable. He had an unfortunate fumble last week. He looks capable. But don't forget Justin Jackson, who came in last season as the pass-catching back. Was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
He had 4 or 5 games.
If only they had a guy like Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. Well, hindsight's a bitch.
Well, that is. It's not ideal. To note with Brady, he's thrown 4 pick sixes in his last 6 games. Which is, obviously a thing. Over his previous 74 games, he'd thrown 2. So that something, it's perhaps just a rough streak, but it was worth noting that definitely that is an issue he is having at the moment.
It is still nice, isn't it, that his last pass in Gillette Stadium was if I ever meet him, I'm going to remind
you guys are so bitter.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Like you say, the Chargers have definitely found the route forward, and it's unfortunate for Tyrod Taylor, but he's not coming back. Okay. we need to talk. We need to talk dog shit. There's no other way around it. So we're going to talk about New York because the best team in New York right now are the Buffalo Bills.
John leaves the room.
Yeah, he should. The Giants lost 9 points to 17 against the Rams, and last Thursday night the Jets lost 37-28 to the Broncos, quarterbacked by some guy's famous nephew. We have to talk about the New York team, so we're going to. Firstly, which one of these teams is worse, the Giants or the Jets?
Jets.
Why?
Jets.
Well, I've got the Jets. I think we're pretty sure we've all got Jets last in our power ranking, but only just. I do think the Giants are very, very poor.
No, the Giants are bad.
The Giants are not very good, but the Jets are just worse. It's like
I think the opportunity for the Giants to be better sooner is there versus the Jets.
That's the only thing that divided it up for me. I think the Giants have made the right move by moving on to another coach. All right, he hasn't had the chance to do anything yet, but at least they've made the move. And the Jets are just clinging on and going over the same ground, and they need to move on.
Well, another good year, the Giants will have Saquon back. Jones with another year's experience. Draft well again, and next year the Giants could be, watchable.
I don't know. I was just about to ask the question: which one of these quarterbacks is still the starting quarterback for their team next year? Because I'm not convinced by Daniel Jones. Not at all.
I read the messages that you were putting about that. I grant you, I'm not convinced, but who would do better in this team?
Well, no one.
And that's the problem.
No.
Like Sam Darnold, you've got nothing fair to judge him on. Nothing. Because the teams are so badly run around them.
Yeah.
There were times when he just looks so nervous that actually I could probably pick about 26 other quarterbacks who would be better because they would throw the ball away, rather than just hold on to it and get hit, which is what he does. He there's no opportunity, just get rid of it. But he holds it, and you can see him looking. Nothing emerges, and instead of doing the natural thing, he just doesn't know what to do, and it's annoying. And I do worry because I do think. Yeah.
Because you were a fan, weren't you, John?
No. I think he's all right, but
I think he'll end up being bang average if you keep him.
I will throw this to give you an idea of where he's at on the scale. Since the start of last season, he has 30 giveaways, which is second most in the NFL, and that is bang on the same career average as Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
And that is about the level of player he's going to be at the moment. But
I mean, half of those. I mean, most of the giveaways are him dropping the ball rather than chucking it to a bloke in the other colours. And he has got better at that. But we're not moving the ball good enough at the moment, and that kind of has to come down to the quarterback.
Yeah, I actually thought. I mean, I was quite impressed the Giants managed to stay in this game for quite a while. It was only the last quarter where the Rams scored a touchdown where they put some gloss on the score. Like it was 10-9. Well, 10 going second half.
Wasn't a good performance for the Rams, but it didn't happen. I'm still not sold on what the Rams are bringing to the table this season, but okay, they maybe played down. It's a bit like the Steelers. They played down to their opposition, and I don't know how far you can get playing like that, but they got the win, and Goff is playing well enough now. He's not terrible like he was at points last season. So maybe he's on the upswing.
I think all these teams that we struggle to get excited about are teams that don't have balanced offense, aren't they? So, those teams that look great are the teams that run the ball and throw the ball. Mm-hmm. So whether that's via committee, so last year the Niners, you wouldn't say they had a top 10 running back, but it ran the most yards, so it didn't matter how it was done, but they had a balanced offense. And what you see is, unbalanced offenses, they just, they don't always work against every opposition. So you end up with teams that are weaky against the right opposition. So they'll score 35 points one week and, 18 points the next week.
Mm.
So then we go, oh, they look okay. And then the next week we go, oh, they don't look very good. And then we go, oh, they look okay again. And then we go, they don't look very good. So, it's because they don't have a plan B, C, and D. That's the problem at the Rams.
Okay, let's leave half of the dog shit aside and talk slightly more about the Jets. Just because I want to credit Sam Darnold with a 46-yard touchdown run, which was brilliant, and then say that is the only thing the Jets did well in the whole game, and that I still don't understand the Gase thing. Do you know, winless teams are 7-0 against the Jets since Gase took over. That's insane. That is ridiculous. They a winless team. They are the worst team against other teams that are terrible. And that tells you everything you need to know. Also, the last three quarterbacks winning on debut, all won playing for the Broncos. So Brandon Allen, obviously Brett Rippon, who played this week.
Drew Lock.
And who, sorry?
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock was the other one, exactly. Like, the Broncos are getting a fair amount out of probably not great quarterbacks, even though, they're only 1-3, they're not playing that well. But it shows you when there's a lack of talent. I think coaching can help, and I do think the coaching is almost there now with Denver, but it's still miles off with the Jets. Miles off.
Yeah. I mean, again, you look at the talent on that Denver team, they've suffered with injuries as well, but there's still good enough pass catchers, good enough running backs for a semi-decent, a semi-crap, whatever you want to call it, quarterback to do well.
Oh, Melvin Gordon, 23 carries, 107.
Yeah, exactly.
That's everything they would want out of Melvin Gordon. So you just got to hand the ball off to him, and occasionally, and this is what Rippon did, occasionally just fling it long. He threw 3 picks and 2 touchdowns, but he basically looked like a man who'd been told, you're never getting another go at this, so you might as well fling it. And he just did.
Well, he looked brilliant. He made some really good passes.
Yeah.
He made some bloody awful passes as well. He was intercepted 3 times, let's not forget. But he made some good passes.
You ever heard of Tim Patrick?
Yeah, Tim Patrick, 6 receptions, 113 yards.
I've never heard of him before, but, Jerry Jeudy, 2 receptions, 61 yards. And this wasn't all yards after the catch. This was like, these guys found some space, and this new quarterback was like, yeah, he's on my team, I'll fling it down there. It was enjoyable to watch from that point of view, because you just never knew what was going to happen. It's not sustainable, but
probably not. Judy's touchdown catch was brilliant as well. Literally leapt over the defender and grabbed it. He showed great strength and great positioning to do that. And I before the draft, I said he's probably probably the best wide receiver in the draft. I can't stand by that. I think he's really coming on nicely. I think Tim Patrick is a sneaky good pickup in fantasy if you need a wide receiver, because Noah Fant's going to be injured for the next game. And obviously Cortland Sutton's not there anymore, so there you go. But don't trust me, because I'm doing terrible.
I was going to say, here's my tip: don't listen to Jim. Okay.
I'm just trying to lull you guys into picking someone else up. So
from the Jets in the AFC East to the Bills, who remain undefeated. They beat the Raiders 30-23 in a game that was never this close. I mean, this team genuinely looks really, really good. The defense is definitely not playing at Bills' level, but it doesn't seem to matter. Josh Allen is like in the zone.
Well, he's reading defenses better, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I think he is, where he was having some problems, first couple of years, that's the difference, isn't it? Now you can see he's, marshalling things at the line. He's just making better decisions. I think, he's going for the, for the open player.
Well, don't forget as well. The first couple of seasons, how many weeks did we sit here and say he just continually overthrows open receivers? And now the touch on some of the pass placement is like veteran-esque. It's brilliant.
We said for one of his touchdowns, I think it was, I can't remember, was it to Colby? Davis. It was a beautiful pass. I mean, it wasn't a short pass, but it was just a well-weighted pass that just fell into the receiver's arms. It was like perfect. And I think you're right. And his accuracy has improved beyond measures Yeah, he's still got the athletic ability to run the ball when they need him to, and he can still fling it miles as well when they need him to. Like that connection between him and Stephon Diggs is brilliant. And yeah,
got options at running back as well. Those Singletree doing okay.
Yeah.
They've got Moss as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Moss is maybe not putting in the workload they thought, but Singletary, 23 touches, 76 scrimmage yards, touchdown, nearly 19 fantasy points. Like, he is everything they want out of him, and he seems to be able to find the tightest of gaps and work his way through. He's quite small.
They seem to have eased him into the season, because I had him in fantasy and dropped him twice, and then I picked him back up again for a third time this week. Because they were running a bit of committee at the start of the season, almost easing him into the season. But the last 2 weeks, he's definitely taken over as the primary back.
Yeah, and he should be, because he is definitely the most talented back on the roster. Did anyone else notice the little stat that popped up? Derek Carr surpassing Hall of Famer Ken Stabler for the most passing touchdowns in Raiders history with 150.
I commented on it in our WhatsApp group. Like, that's disgraceful that he's already winning that battle.
Okay, maybe it's disgraceful, or is it a sign that we just don't rate the guy because he plays on what is really a bad team, or at best an average team, but he's not that bad.
I rate him. I think he's a good quarterback.
He's been there a long time, hasn't he? What's he been there, 8 years?
2014 he was drafted.
60.
More comment on the Raiders than Derek Carr.
Yeah, I completely agree. I always think it's mad that his position seems to be always under question. Like when Gruden first came in, it was like, they're going to get rid of Carr. He's a good quarterback. Yes, you can bring in the number one quarterback in the draft, but there's no guarantee he's going to be a good quarterback. Derek Carr is.
Yeah, I agree with you. Considering as well what he's throwing to, you take Darren Waller out, it's Hunter Renfrow, Nelson Aguilar, Zay Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's doing quite a lot with not very much. They're 2-2. I think the Raiders are fine, and they got an outside shot at the playoffs, and with the squad they've got, that's as good as you can hope for.
It's the defense that lets Las Vegas down. Like their offense, I think, is fine, even with the slightly dodgy receivers. You've got Henry Ruggs to come back, of course, so that'll put a bit more quality into there. Josh Jacobs is awesome, one of the best running backs in the league, and Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends in the league. If they just find some more people to rush the passer and then get a backfield, I think they'll be fine.
So, did anyone stay up last night for the Monday Night Football games, which saw the Chiefs overcome the Camless Pats 26-10 in the postponed game due to Cam having COVID?
No,
me neither, because I was so sure that this was going to be an absolute hammering. Since 2000, I think we've only lost twice by 20 points, and I thought this was going to be another one. But 26-10, honestly, I'll take that. Brian Hoyer, he's been with the team in total 12 years in 3 different stints and never started a game for the team. And he played like a rookie from the highlights I saw, and they replaced him with Stidham, who eventually scored a touchdown. I thought we'd just get the Hoyer comments out of the way. As soon as Cam wasn't playing, you knew that
all it shows with Brian Hoyer is that the league definitely is and did blackball Colin Kaepernick, because if anyone thinks that Hoyer should be getting paid millions of dollars to be like that, they're absolutely mad.
Yeah,
we've stopped talking about it, but it's still relevant.
That was the name I didn't think was going to come up ever again on the podcast, but okay.
He'll come up.
Mentioned he is always going to come up. I thought, this shows how important coaching it is, because you're right, Hoyer and Stidham should not have stood a chance against Kansas, and it wasn't until the fourth quarter that Kansas put Patriots away. And you look at the list of receivers. Julian Edelman is the only one that stands out, and he had a drop which was taken for which was intercepted. It was a classic Bill Belichick. He'll be gutted he lost, because up until that fourth quarter they were in with a chance of winning this game.
The coaching was amazing to keep home. 3 of his lowest quarterback ratings have all been against the Patriots since he's come in. He's only played them 4 times. So, they have obviously, Belichick does that. You no longer dispute that he's the best coach, but the talent isn't there. And without Cam, you knew the team couldn't win. because what threat is there?
Yeah, I think with Cam, it could have been a very different game.
I think we had a chance, but as soon as he wasn't playing, I knew I wasn't watching this game. James White, I want to quickly mention James White, comeback game after his dad was killed in a car accident and his mum was injured. 59 scrimmage yards, 13 fantasy points, 10 touches. He's a plug-in and play weapon that I think we haven't seen him and Cam that much together because of what had happened. But I think you're going to see a lot out of James White now when he's back, because you put him and Cam in the same backfield, you actually don't know who's coming up with the ball.
Well, you have that Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey effect, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, James White isn't Christian McCaffrey, but he is a good player. And yeah, it causes questions. I think you can put him in the backfield of Rex Burkhead as well, have the three of them. And that, because they haven't got the receivers, like they haven't. Like, I think Ellerman might be past it now. Now that Brady's not there, I think it's showing up that he's not actually all that great. So actually just go with the run game, and that's what Josh McDaniels is doing. Even the games that Cam's been in, he's not passed for that many yards. He's looked good when he has, but it's been more about the running game. And I think you have a nice, you throw in Damon Harris as well, who had a good game yesterday, 17 carries, 100 yards. That's a nice backfield to be working with.
Yeah, Sonny Michel's gone to IR now, hasn't he?
Yep.
I don't know if you're going to see a lot more out of him.
No,
I think
Harris.
I think Michel could well be traded away at the end of the season or released, whatever they need to do. I don't think they're convinced by his lack of durability.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, there's not much more to take from that other than the Chiefs are undefeated, which is more or less to be expected. And I don't know what the power rankings are going to say at the end of this, but I'm guessing that they're top. We'll move to a get-right team after last week for the Ravens, who beat the Washington football team 31-17. And Lamar had his longest touchdown run, I believe, in this game, 50 yards. I couldn't believe that. I assumed he'd run for larger games before, but so a 50-yard touchdown run. I wouldn't say the football team were embarrassed at all, but it looked like two teams completely at the opposite ends of what they are able to do. I'm sure that Haskins was close to being pulled in this game, and then he eventually turned up with a touchdown. I don't know how many weeks he's got left. If they don't start hot in some of these games, I think he will be pulled.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, but again, he's not. There isn't much around him to work with, is there?
No, Scary. He's playing brilliantly. I think he had 100 yards in this game.
118, yeah.
Yep.
I thought the highlight of it was RG3 coming back, throwing one pass and it being intercepted.
That was hard to go. They brought him in, and he was 5 or 6 yards in his own end zone when he tried to get out. It was. He looked embarrassed to have to come in that situation. But the Ravens didn't have to do any more than this. You kind of felt there was probably another gear in there if they really wanted to. Mark Ingram turned up again. He's not done a lot this season, but 8 carries, 34 yards and a touchdown. You kind of feel like the Gus Edwards, Mark Ingram thing is it's just whichever one gets off the bench quickest.
Yeah, I don't think any of the running backs have done a lot though. I also think because it's split between 3 of them and then 4 of them, you include Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Like when you're looking at the box score, none of them jump off the page. 50 yards, 30 yards, 30 yards, 16 yards. Like, so what? I don't think you'll see many 100-yard rushing games from any of their running back this year.
A quick nod to Sam Cock, the punter, though, with a beautiful 15-yard pass on the play punt. Yeah. And it was good. That might have been the best pass of the game.
It was good from the receiver as well to know exactly where the first down marker is. Stand on it, so he didn't have to throw it any further whatsoever.
It's very true. I mean, it just looked like a really well-rehearsed play.
Yeah.
The only thing I think with Washington is they're not miles out of these games, and I don't know how long Ron Rivera is going to not want to win for. If he thinks, because they play, they haven't got a massively tough schedule coming up. I think he's going to want to win some of them games, and if he thinks dropping Haskins gets him, I think he'll do it. I don't think he's not tied to Haskins, is he?
No, and he's been very non-committal over Haskins being the starting quarterback. If you listen to any of his press conferences, it's not like he's out and out saying, why would we ever drop Haskins? He's our number one quarterback. It's like, we'll put the best player in. We'll make a decision on game day or whatever it might be. So Haskins is playing for probably his career at the moment.
Yeah,
and if you want to win, ask any head coach. You put in a player like Kyle Allen. That's guarantee wins. Oh,
it'll be Alex
They're going
Smith.
to storm it when Kyle Allen comes back. Oh, great player.
How well Kyle Allen has played in the past, I will say. Like, he's not brilliant, but he's won games.
Yeah.
Next week, or maybe this week, the Rams. Perhaps that's not the game, but then they play the Cowboys haven't got a defense. Then they play the Giants again. Then the Lions, Bengals, Cowboys again. Tough game against the Steelers. The Niners are beaten up, but you should be better by then. And then they end the season with Panthers and Eagles. Like,
there's 3 or 4 games in there they can win.
There's a good 4 games in there that they can win, but not necessarily with Dwayne Haskins.
No, I think depending on where they are in the draft, there's 3 good quarterbacks coming into the NFL next year, probably. I think they're replacing their quarterback unless they pick up someone from free agency.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think it's going to be the one there for them. Okay, so the Bengals get their first win with Joe Burrow as they beat Jacksonville 33-25. Burrow's the real deal. If we're saying Justin Herbert looks like a franchise quarterback, Burrow looks amazing.
Yes. Yeah, just Bengals
look like a different team, don't they, than last year?
Yeah, they really do.
Andy Dalton,
Yeah. It looks competitive every stretch of the way, and now they seem to have got Mixon going because they barely used him the first 3 weeks.
The first 3 weeks they were asking Burrow to throw like 40, 50, 60 times, I think, in one of the games. And it's like, have you forgotten you've got Joe Mixon? And this time they didn't forget they had Joe Mixon. He carried 25 times, 150 yards.
Yeah.
There's 2 things that rookie quarterbacks need. It's a running back, a good running game, and a good tight end. And they've got a good running game. They just need to use it more and not put as much pressure on Joe Burrow.
Burrow, 300 passing yards in 3 games to start a career. That's the first time anyone's done it since 1950. I mean, and all of this without AJ Green, who I think had 1 reception.
Yeah, T. Higgins looks like a good pickup as well. Him and
Boyd, all the receivers look good except AJ Green, who is either not fully recovered or just isn't in the game plan. Like, they held him out most of the second half. He barely played.
Yeah, 1 catch, 3 yards.
He could be out of there. I think if someone turns up with a 5th or a 6th round pick, he's gone.
Easily.
So I can't find too much to fault about what the Bengals are doing now, and that's a scary place to be.
I think, they are a franchise that's still building. This was a game that they probably should have won, and they did win. I think they were unlucky last week not to beat the Eagles. This season for Zach Taylor is another freebie. So get a few wins, probably have a top 10 draft pick, and then kind of really carry on building that offensive line to protect Joe Burrow. I think they've got the receivers now in Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. They've got a good 1-2 punch there. AJ Green can go. They can bring in another rookie, or they can bring in a decent tight end, because I think that's probably where they're lacking. Yeah. And then stock up on defense.
2 tough weeks coming up. They've got the Ravens and then the Colts.
Yeah.
I still don't think they'll win more than 4 games.
Early, aren't they? Probably right. I think you're probably right. They needed that win because the next couple of games could be proper hammerings, really. But at least they got it, and they do seem to have chosen the right quarterback. I mean, I will say, and he only gets a brief mention, Gardner Minshew holds a record now for the Jaguars through the first 4 games of the season. Want to have a guess what the record is?
Least most hated by me.
Sorry, Gary?
Least interceptions?
No, it's the most touchdowns thrown by a Jags quarterback. 8 through the first 4 games of any season.
That's pretty pathetic, isn't it? It's a pathetic record.
I thought you'd like that. I mean, all right, he is just flinging the ball, but
there's only two, isn't it? It's only two a game.
2 a game. It's not asking a lot.
It's terrible.
Not asking a lot at all. Oh, who's having snap, crackle, and pop there? Oh, there he's back. Right.
Beating John went for some deep fried haggis.
From two teams that we don't expect much out of to a team that I did expect more out of, the Cowboys, as they lost to the Browns in an 87-point shootout, 49-38, possibly the most fun game of the weekend. Odell Beckham is the Cowboy killer. 7 touchdowns he's got against them in 8 games. And he was, well, who has seen Odell Beckham score 3 touchdowns? No one since 2015 is the answer. It was incredible. He had a pass. Was it a 50-yard pass from Jarvis Landry? 40-yard pass from Jarvis Landry.
37
He had a rushing touchdown to seal the game. Like, it's a bit like what we just said with the Bengals and Mixon. It's like the Browns have suddenly realised they've got Odell Beckham and they better use him.
Yeah. So we talked about the Texans giving up 181 yards per game on the ground. The next worst are the Dallas Cowboys, 172 yards per game. And Cleveland rushing in total had 307 yards. Bearing in mind their best running back went off injured as well.
I'm not sure he is their best running back. I think.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's probably debatable now as well. But Dearness Johnson had 95 yards. I mean, I don't know how much of the coverage you've seen from Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp on some of the previews, but they have absolutely torn into the Dallas Cowboys defense, and rightly so. It's terrible. It's
38 points conceded in 3 consecutive games. Last time they did that?
1950, 60?
1960 was their first season.
Yeah, so 1960 then.
1960 it is. They haven't been this bad on defense since their first season in 1960. And at the same time, at the other end of the field, Dak Prescott has just passed for the most yards through the first 4 games of any Super Bowl era season.
But it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter because you lose the game. Let's not forget the Cowboys are one dodgy kickoff away from being 0-4.
Yeah.
They're not running Zeke Elliott at all. Like he had 12 carries, 54 yards. Dak Prescott threw.
They took him out of the game, didn't they? I was asking, where was he?
And you look at some of Dak Prescott's throws that weren't completed. He was intercepted once. If the Cleveland cornerbacks could catch, he probably would have been intercepted 3 or 4 times. Like they're putting. It's well noted. I'm not Dak Prescott's biggest fan, but he is playing pretty well. But they're putting far too much on him, and the defense is. You might as well just run out. I don't know, a school. Pick one of the high school teams in Texas because they probably got one of them's probably got a better defense than the Cowboys at the moment. It's just terrible.
It was a great game to watch, though.
It was brilliant fun. Don't get me wrong, but the Browns had a better game plan, and we shouted at Stefanski when we were talking about the Vikings. He's gone in there and done exactly what he needed to do. He realised he's got a really good running game in Chubb and Hunt, and also Dearness Johnson apparently. And Odell Beckham. And he's not asking too much of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield threw for 165 yards. And they scored 49 points.
Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback when you've got a rushing game. Like so many of these quarterbacks can be. And they have a rushing game. So
they've got players. You just need to get the ball into the hands. And that's what they did with Odell Beckham. And it's like, just give him the ball and let him do something. Because he can.
Beckham's... receiving touchdown from Jarvis Landry was the second longest in the last 2 years. Do you know who threw the longest as a wide receiver?
Sanu?
No.
Edelman?
Beckham?
It was Beckham in 2018 threw a 50-yard touchdown pass to Russell Shepard. So there you go. It's swings and roundabouts. Look, I was delighted because we've just talked about the 2 teams where I had my highest scoring fantasy players. I think Joe Mixon and Odell Beckham tore it up for me this week, and I nearly left both of them out because they've been so poor. So it just goes to show you teams need time to settle in and turn things around, I think. But the Cowboys, they need to get right and get right quickly,
Well,
right?
Mike McCarthy needs to sort this defense out, and he was like, there was a whole thing about him taking a year off from football. And he's like, I've gone back into my garage and I've figured out how to play the game again. It's all going to be different. And the first thing he does is hire his defensive coordinator, who's Mike Nolan, who is terrible.
Yeah.
Just get rid of him.
He's got to go
quick.
Yeah,
I think as well, the Cowboys just need to play a few divisional games, and then everything will look much better.
That's true as well.
Despite being 1-3, they're still the best team in their division, aren't they? Or they're second technically, but you'd say that they look like the best team.
I don't. But do they? You just throw over you can just throw it over the top of them.
Yeah.
You can't.
We just run through them.
Yeah, but we
little T-Rex arms.
Yes. But no, like
I meant the Giants. I wasn't slagging John's T-Rex arms.
But I'm just saying, you know, if you wanted to get Carson Wentz back in the groove, just give him that Cowboys defense and get him to chuck it over the top of it. They can have 16 shootouts this season.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, because they're going to make a lot of average quarterbacks look world beating.
Yeah.
It's very true. Right. So Russell Wilson continues his MVP quest. And you know, it wasn't an outstanding game, but they beat the Dolphins comfortably 31-23. And at the same time, in-division rivals, the Niners, lost the battle of seriously beaten up teams 25-20 against the previously mentioned Eagles. So what I want to know from this is which of the teams out of the two, the Niners and the Eagles, is worse off through injuries? And whereabouts are the Seahawks headed? Is this the Super Bowl caliber team we think they should be?
Well, the Niners are worse off, aren't they? We've lost like everybody that means anything to us.
Yeah.
Like, it hurts. Like, you know, I know I've been on the gin, but like, you know, it really hurts. Like,
I think if Jimmy Garoppolo is playing in that game, we don't lose it, because we lost it from Nick Mullins throwing 2 really bad interceptions. And you know, he's had a couple of good games, and people are, oh my God, is he better than Jimmy? No, he's not better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He never was. He's a good backup, but he's not a starting quarterback. Garoppolo wouldn't. Even though Garoppolo isn't a star quarterback, he's slightly above average. I don't think he would have thrown that second interception, because that was just terrible.
That was poor. Did we see Beat Hard in this game?
Yeah, he came at the end, and it actually played all right. You know,
14 of 19, 138 yards. I mean, Mullins looked like a deer in headlights.
Well, that
second
interception was for a pick six, was a disgrace.
Yeah, it was.
Like, literally, he just threw it straight to an Eagles player. He just looked at him in the eyes and went, "You want this?" And he just threw it to him. I
think that's the biggest difference. I think, you know, all in all, if the 49ers had Garoppolo, I think they would have won. And considering how many players they lost, we're down to our third combination in cornerbacks, because we've lost, I think, 5 now.
What did Kittle have? About 14 receptions or something?
15.
He literally didn't know where else to pass the ball, did he? He was like, George,
you have it again. Like, Devo Samuel's back, and that's good to see. But Jerick McKinnon had a decent match, but
the highlight stat for Jerick McKinnon: he is the first Niners player with 1 or more touchdowns in each of the first 4 games of a season since who?
Frank Gore.
No.
Jerry Rice. No, because he has
Jerry Rice, 1991 was the last time a player scored in 4 consecutive games to start the season for the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Ayuk had a great highlight. His leap for was just bloody awesome. And like, I think the coaching here is still brilliant. Like, considering where they are, they're in terms of all the injuries, they're 2-2. Fair play to the Eagles. I thought Carson Wentz had a good game. He needed a good game because he's been absolutely terrible. They've still got a lot to do on that team, though.
Yeah, they've turned the ball over they've given the ball away 9 times this season, which is tied for the most. When you're already beaten up, you cannot afford to keep giving the ball away.
Yeah.
And they have got to tighten up everything, the Eagles. Now, they're 1-2-1, they're top. but they are the least convincing division leaders I think we've seen.
Yes.
They're just imposters at the top there. So let's see. I'm not sure they're getting enough out of Miles Saunders. 3.5 yards a carry.
It's a beaten up O-line as well, though. You can't. I think Miles Sanders is a good player. I think they've played 4 different tackles, 4 different guards, and Travis Kelce at centre so far.
Yeah,
and we're in a
9
4
players so far.
Yeah. So
fair enough.
They're both beating up teams. Fair play to the Eagles. They won because they've got the better quarterback.
How long in the other game we're talking about where the Seahawks beat the Dolphins, how long before we see Tua? Because the magic seems to be wearing off as it does, but I don't think they're in a rush to bring him in.
Well, he's come out today, hasn't he, saying that he tries to treat his players as if, or Tua, as if he was their parent. And, after a big layoff last year, does he really want to just chuck him in, with all that pressure, potentially to get injured? Like I took Tua in our Dynasty League because you just don't know if he is going to be, the next Breeze as they were trying to say he might be. So, I think he's clearly a talent, but, the Dolphins aren't looking at the playoffs, are they? I know a couple of people had him as a sleeper to get into the playoffs with the extra spaces, but I don't see him as a playoff team this year.
No. This is
wrong.
Yeah, it's another team that's rebuilding. And I think I think they're coached very well. I really like Brian Flores. I think he did an outstanding job last year. I think he's doing a decent job this year. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is the perfect quarterback to have in that position because he knows he's not going to be playing next year. He knows he's not playing for his career.
How many years have we been saying that he knows he's not playing next year?
It gets the best out of him somehow. Like he's great to have there to tutor Tua as well. He's got all the experience under the sun. What better person to have there than to tutor a young quarterback? And everything he's saying, he's I don't know if you read what's his face is Football Morning in America. He was the journalist. Yeah. Anyway, but he was saying there's an interview with Fitzpatrick there, and Fitzpatrick was saying he's a great kid. He's got lots of football knowledge. He's good to be around. I'm just trying to teach him. I'm trying to teach him what I know, and he'll be an excellent player next year. So I don't know what's going on. I think
Game 10.
Yeah.
Quickly on these 2 quarterbacks, then only 2 quarterbacks have won 90 games across their first 9 seasons. Russell Wilson is one. Who is the other one?
Brady.
No.
Peyton.
Yes. Peyton Manning. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, since 2008, he has the most fourth quarter interceptions, but how many has he thrown since 2008? Just in the fourth quarter. It's a lot.
100?
24.
48.
It's not 100. It's not 24. Jim?
48.
64. Just in the fourth quarter.
I didn't think I was being that harsh on him, really.
Well, yeah, I don't know how many he's thrown in that time, but it's got to be a lot. But 64 just in the fourth quarter is amazing. But I still agree. I still think he's the right player.
He has been playing for teams that are always losing.
Yeah, that's true. He's a good player for the game, isn't he?
Yeah. Right.
Prove anything with stats.
Finally, we're broaching the last game. So it turns out, I don't think many people are surprised, Nick Foles probably isn't the answer for the Bears, who lost their undefeated start to the Colts, 19-11. There wasn't much to talk about in this game, if I'm honest.
It's a really boring game.
But I don't think it matters which one of Trubisky or Foles you play under centre most of the time. I don't think it matters.
Are they going to try and trade Trubisky? He's been dropped from the roster, isn't he?
Trade him to who?
I don't know. He's been dropped, though, isn't he?
Canada.
Nagy only likes to have 2 quarterbacks on his roster. So he wasn't in the 53-man, was he?
Was he not? I didn't see that.
No. And there's a lot of speculation going around that it could be, so they're trying to keep him healthy for a trade.
No one's trading Mitchell Trubisky.
Well, Elway wouldn't trade for Trubisky?
No.
Just for shits and giggles.
I wouldn't even put that on Elway. Not if they got Drew Lock.
On the bench at the weekend.
I think this game just shows you just quite how good this Colts defense is.
Yeah, the Colts defense. Yeah. Really.
That is, that's all it really told you. They must be racking up the number one defense stats at the moment.
They are,
Because, you know, they're the only team that seems to be able to hold teams to under 20 points. You know, they just look great.
Yeah, they're giving up 14 points a game at the moment. Yeah, in total, they've given up 945 yards.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It has been ridiculous. Khalil Mack could have had an interception, which might have changed the way this game was going. But really, all we learned is the Bears' defense isn't quite as good as it used to be. The Colts have sort of overtaken them, and these are two quarterbacks who are just completely different. Rivers is still winging it out wherever he can. They just don't ask him to do it as often. And Nick Foles is the check down king. He orchestrates fine. He can't lead you down the field and win the game. He's done that bit of his career. That hot streak is over. It's just there's nothing for you to hang your hat on at quarterback with the Bears. Tyler Bray is the third choice. And Gary's right. I just looked it up. They are saying he is expected to be ahead on the depth chart of Trubisky now. Well, that's insane because Tyler Bray, I think, has thrown one pass as an NFL quarterback.
As many as that.
Well, this is my point.
Well, being as Trubisky chose that head coach, it's definitely definitely a few fingers up there, isn't there? Because he was involved in the selection of the head coach, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was. Yeah. And that first year that Nagy and Trubisky had together, they were decent. It's the last 2 years it's been bad.
It has been, but I stick to my point. I don't think it matters which one of Trubisky and Foles you play. Trubisky probably isn't quite as bad as we think, and Foles certainly isn't as good as most people think. And that's pretty much where they're at. They haven't done themselves any favours by bringing in Nick Foles, really. Their season isn't going to hinge on having him.
No, I mean, I said it last week. That 3-0 going into week 4, they were 3-0, and that was like a very soft 3-0. 3-1 is still very soft. If they make it to the playoffs, it's because there's an extra playoff position to be had. That's why I think they make it to the playoffs.
I don't think they're even good enough to do that. If they make
I don't think so either. I said it last week.
That really will be. All right, okay. That's the game recaps over and done with. It's power ranking time after 4 weeks of the season. So John has compiled the list of the rankings. John, do you want to take us through what everybody's done and where we differ? Because there's always a few differences in opinion. You can start at the bottom if you like and work your way up. Get your crap team out of the way early.
Oh, I'll start at the top.
Oh,
because
okay.
Who do you think's first?
Chiefs.
Second?
Ravens.
Packers,
surely.
Yeah.
3 of us had them at 2. Jim had them at 4. But Jim can't even pick a fantasy team, so what does he know? Then Seahawks.
Ravens. Oh.
Ravens. There are next,
Steelers.
and then the Bills.
Yeah.
Bills well ahead of the Steelers, but Steelers 6th. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and then Titans and Colts round out the top 10.
Oh, I did not have Tampa Bay that high, did I?
Oh, I did. I had them 7th.
You had Tampa Bay 10, so you were 3 out of the, and the bottom, Jets, clean sweep. Then the Giants, Jim was only one who didn't have them 31st. Washington football team 30th. Then we have Falcons. Then Broncos, Lions, Texans. Just below the Jags and the Dolphins. Who
That's
was
hard on the Texans.
You see, I had the Texans 29th, so did Jim, and Griff had them at 24th, and Gary had them at 22nd. They are 0-4 and don't have a coach or a head coach or a GM.
Also had an awful schedule.
Well, they've had to play the schedule and they've lost the game, so that has to be part of
they can play next week, does it?
Well, how can you be?
Yeah, I don't fancy them winning next week either.
No. No, I just think
well, we'll see it after 8 games.
All manner of that's it. This is what it's
John,
judged. Who wants to guess?
Where was the average Eagles ranking? Because I deliberately set them and the Vikings quite low because I've been
22nd.
22nd. I think I had a lot lower than that.
Gary 19, you 25, Jim 19, me 25. Okay, who wants to guess where the biggest differences were?
The Bengals.
I'm hearing Bengals.
49ers.
Okay, there was 7 places between Cowboys and the Cardinals, so they range from 12th to 19th, whereas the Cardinals range from 14th to 21st. Pales into insignificance though, because Las Vegas Raiders range from 14th to 29th.
I had them 14th.
Gary has them at 29.
Wow, Gary, that's harsh.
I don't think they're very good.
Very good either. Oh, 17th.
So yeah, 14, 15, 17, 29.
You know, the offense hasn't been that great. And I don't think they're very good.
No, fair enough. But yeah.
That's what this is all about.
It's what it's all about. Let's see where they are. Let's see what happens at week 8. I might try and write this up for the website at some point before the weekend.
Very promising of you while you're away on holiday there.
Well, yeah, but I say before the weekend, before Sunday night. But yeah, well, let's see. But
sorry,
yeah,
John,
some big differences.
What was the average position of the Falcons? I had them 30th because I think they're dreadful.
20. It was 29th. So they range from 26th to 30th. 26, 26, 28, 30.
Yeah. See, like there you go. See, I think the Falcons, are a better team than the Raiders.
No.
No. They're a better offense for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Then they stop, and then the defense gives in anyway.
I'd much rather watch a Falcons game than a Raiders game.
Oh, it's same as.
That's not what it's called, though. It's not called an entertainment ranking. It's a power ranking.
That might be the power that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, entertainment, I'd have the Cowboys well up there because that's fun.
I had them in 12th, didn't I, John?
You did.
Yep, 12, and everyone else had them at 19 or 18
I think
or 19.
It's too early in a disjointed season to just discount the talent on the roster and just go based solely on results.
Of course.
I am, but I'm judging the whole roster, and the Cowboys don't have a defense.
Yeah, I agree. They're not a good team. They're just a good offense.
And defense
at
wins
least
championships.
2 of us had them going to the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
I didn't have them going to the playoffs.
They would still be on target, but without him, they look dreadful in the middle. They really do. You can just, like John said, you just fling them over the top. So,
yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you for compiling that, John. It'll be interesting to see, like you say, where we're at week 8, because that's the real yardstick for the season, really.
I should also point out, Paul didn't submit his, which normally creates some other outliers. So week 8 might create some more when his return.
So finally, to note that Cam has become, or is asymptomatic for the Patriots, so that means he can return next weekend, providing there are no more positive tests, which we really need him to come back, because he is our offense. And really, this is how the NFL are going to try and operate in these times. They're going to try and move the bye weeks around, reschedule games and keep them on. I think they handled this well this week, if I'm honest. I don't think the NFL do that many things well, but I think they handled this well. And I really hope this is going to kick some teams into really looking at what they're doing.
There's been an update, hasn't there, in the last couple of days. So there's been a memo and a meeting between the commissioner and the team officials, and basically, told them that these aren't guidelines, that they're mandatory.
Yeah.
And if you cause, an issue to the schedule, then you will, based on not following the rules, then you will have financial and draft and potential forfeiture of games as well. So
I think it's the only way to
taking it quite seriously. I think he's quite pleased they've managed to get the games played.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's prepared to allow,
they have fined a good number of teams and players and head coaches as well now in terms of kind of not wearing the proper.
How many Raiders players got done for not wearing masks?
Yeah, well, the Raiders also got done because there was a
Went to a
team
party.
gathering. Yeah, Darren Waller was hosting a charity event, and a load of players turned up for that as well. So they've been done for that. And now there's the threat of draft picks, like Gary said. I think that will, the first team to kind of lose a draft pick, I think it'll be a bit of a shock. But yeah, we'll see. I agree. I think the NFL have handled it well. I think I do think we're going to see an extended season. I could see like having some more regular season games going into January. But I think especially when you consider the Titans and the Steelers situation, they've kind of moved the schedule around now, so that they had to move on the Steelers and the Ravens game to do that as well. I think that shows that they are being flexible and they are being fluid towards the situation. So fair play to them. And we still get to watch football on Sunday evening, so that's good as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting when there's no room to shuffle bye weeks, whether a team will be forced to go without one. That will be interesting. Right, thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back next week with a full slate of games, bar those which are already scheduled to be off, with all things crossed and being lucky. Thank you very much, and good night.
Bye.
Bye.